Lion protects man. The survival of a lost hiker will shock you. Blood ran down Daniel's face as he struggled to breathe. The pain in his left leg was unbearable, as if 1,000 needles were piercing his bone. He had fallen more than 10 meters into the ravine and was now trapped between sharp rocks, completely alone in the remote savannas of East Africa. His communication equipment had shattered in the fall, fragments scattered around like pieces of his destroyed hope. The backpack with water and food was meters away, impossible to reach with his leg broken at an unnatural angle. Daniel Thompson, 32 years old, a wildlife photographer, never imagined that his third day of expedition would end like this. He was experienced, careful, meticulous in every step he took. He had photographed lions in Tanzania, elephants in Kenya, leopards in South Africa. He knew the dangers, respected nature, followed all safety protocols. But nature does not forgive mistakes, no matter how small they are, and that loose stone under his feet sealed his fate in a way he could never have predicted. The sun was beginning to set, tinting the sky orange and blood red. The temperature would drop drastically in a few hours. Daniel knew that without shelter, without water, with a broken leg and possibly internal bleeding, his chances of surviving until dawn were minimal. His team would only notice his absence the next day, and finding him in that vastness would be like looking for a needle in a haystack. As consciousness began to slip away, floating between reality and delirium, Daniel heard a sound that froze his blood and accelerated his dying heart. Heavy footsteps. Deep, controlled breathing. A low growl echoed through the ravine, reverberating off the stone walls. His eyes widened when he saw the imposing silhouette emerging among the rocks, outlined against the reddish sky. An adult male lion, immense, with scars across its muscular body, golden eyes fixed on him with a terrifying intensity. Death had arrived. If you're enjoying this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like the video. Comment below what you thought and which city or country you're watching from. But the lion did not attack. It simply watched, its head slightly tilted to the side, as if it were analyzing the fragile, broken being before it. Daniel shook violently, not only from fear, but from the cold that was beginning to take over the ravine with the arrival of the African night. Each shiver sent waves of agony through his shattered leg. The animal approached slowly, each step deliberate and cautious. The enormous claws touched the ground with a muffled sound that echoed in the oppressive silence. Daniel squeezed his eyes shut, expecting to feel the fangs tearing his flesh, ripping out his throat, ending his suffering once and for all. Instead, he felt something warm and rough touch his forehead. The lion's tongue. The predator was licking the blood from his face with an absolutely disturbing gentleness, as if it were caring for an injured cub. When Daniel dared to open his eyes again, his heart almost stopped. He saw something he would never forget for the rest of his life. The lion had a different expression, something he had never captured in any of his photographs during years of documenting wildlife. There was no fury there. There was no hunger. There was no predatory instinct that should completely dominate that animal. There was something he never expected to see in a wild predator: recognition of pain. Empathy. That animal carried its own invisible wounds. Deep claw marks on its ribs, an ear torn in half, scars that told stories of violent battles, and something much darker in the golden eyes that watched him. Daniel, even through the haze of pain and shock, realized that he was not facing an ordinary hunter in search of easy prey. He was facing a father who had lost everything. His pride decimated. His cubs massacred. Everything destroyed by illegal hunters just weeks earlier, leaving that wounded king wandering alone through the savannah, carrying a grief that transcended human understanding. During the first night, Daniel fainted several times from pain. Each time his consciousness returned from the darkness, the lion was there, like a silent guardian. Lying a few meters away, its ears constantly moving, picking up every sound of the nocturnal savannah. Watching. Protecting something its broken instinct had decided to preserve. When the hyenas approached, attracted by the unmistakable smell of fresh blood, the animal's roar echoed through the ravine like an apocalyptic thunderclap. The sound was so powerful that Daniel felt the vibration in his chest, even through the haze of fever that was beginning to overtake him. The hyenas, which had approached with their sinister, confident laughter, fled immediately, their silhouettes disappearing into the darkness like frightened ghosts. The next morning, Daniel was feverish, delirious. The infected leg throbbed with a life of its own, swollen and hot to the touch. His throat burned with thirst, his cracked lips bleeding. That was when he witnessed something that defied everything he knew about animal behavior. The lion went down to a small nearby stream, filled its mouth with clean water, and returned with careful steps. It lowered its head over Daniel, positioning itself with impressive precision, and let the water flow directly onto his cracked lips. Tears ran down the sunburned face of the photographer. It was not just gratitude for the act that kept him alive. It was the deep and overwhelming realization that that animal had made a conscious choice to protect him. In the following days, the pattern repeated with moving consistency. The lion brought small pieces of fresh meat, drove away predators with intimidating roars, and during the cold nights of the savannah, lay down beside Daniel, sharing the warmth of its own massive body. Daniel whispered words of thanks that the lion probably did not understand, but that needed to be said. On the 6th day, the sound of helicopters tore through the sacred silence of the savannah. The blades cut through the hot air with a deafening noise that sent birds flying in panic. The rescue team had finally located the weak emergency signal from Daniel's destroyed equipment, which still emitted intermittent pulses even while shattered. When the paramedics descended by ropes, equipped with stretchers and medical gear, the lion immediately positioned itself in front of Daniel, its massive body completely blocking access. The growl that came from its chest was different from all the others Daniel had heard during those days. It was pure territorial warning. Absolute protection. The men retreated instantly, their hands moving to the tranquilizer guns attached to their belts. The team leader spoke urgently into the radio, asking for instructions on how to deal with an aggressive lion protecting a victim. Daniel gathered all the strength that still remained in his weakened body and shouted in a hoarse voice he barely recognized as his own, "Don't shoot him. Please, for the love of God, don't shoot. He saved me. He kept me alive." The tension in the air was so thick it could be cut. The lion did not retreat even an inch. Its golden eyes fixed on the strangers who dared to try to take away the fragile being it had chosen to protect, that impossible substitute for the cubs that would never return. Daniel extended his trembling hand, dirty with dried blood, touching the animal's mane with reverence, feeling the rough texture beneath his fingers. "It's okay, my friend. I need to go now. You gave me a second chance to live. You gave me more than I deserved." The lion slowly turned its head, looking directly into Daniel's eyes. For a moment impossible to explain, it seemed to understand perfectly what was happening. Slowly, with visible reluctance in every movement, it stepped back a few paces, still vigilant, still ready to attack if it perceived a threat. The paramedics acted with professional speed, immobilizing the fractured leg and preparing Daniel for evacuation. As he was hoisted into the helicopter, strapped to the stretcher with harnesses that ensured his safety, Daniel forced his eyes to remain open despite the crushing exhaustion. He looked down one last time through the tears that blurred his vision. The lion remained there, in the same place, a living statue of strength and loyalty, watching until the very last second. Two survivors saying goodbye in silence, united by something that science would never be able to fully explain. 3 months later, after surgeries, painful physical therapy, and sleepless nights reliving every moment, Daniel returned to that place. His leg still hurt constantly, a permanent reminder of those days, but he needed to go back. He needed to know if the lion was still alive, if it had survived the hunters, the droughts, the territorial battles. With special authorization from local conservationists who were fascinated by his story, he set up camp in the same region where he had almost died. On the 3rd night, under a starry sky that seemed infinite, he heard the familiar roar that made his heart race violently. When the lion emerged among the acacia trees, illuminated only by the full moon, Daniel did not feel fear. He felt something he never imagined feeling for a wild predator capable of killing him with a single swipe: deep longing. The animal approached slowly, sniffing the air carefully, processing the familiar scents mixed with new odors of civilization. Then it happened. The lion rested its massive head against Daniel's chest, emitting a low guttural sound that vibrated through his bones. It was not a threat. It was recognition. It was memory. Daniel hugged the lion's mane tightly, tears streaming uncontrollably down his face. There, under the African stars that witnessed that impossible meeting, two beings who should never have connected proved that family is not defined by species or genetics. It is defined by who chooses to stay by your side when everything falls apart. If this story touched your heart, subscribe to the channel, like the video, and tell us in the comments where you're watching from.